How's everyone doing today? My name is David Ryan Polgar. I'm the founder and president of the nonprofit All Tech is Human. I'm sitting here in my office in New York City. We're based in New York City, our nonprofit is, but yet we have a global audience and lens of how we think about all of these issues. If you're unfamiliar with All Tech is Human, I'm glad you joined us on today's live stream where we're talking all about getting the job in responsible tech. Responsible tech, a relatively new concept and idea. Really, it's something that we're heavily involved with at All Tech is Human, where we try to bring together people, organizations, and ideas to tackle wicked tech and society issues while moving at the speed of tech. When we think about responsible tech, really what we're thinking about is a global, multi-stakeholder, and multidisciplinary network that's trying to tackle these complex tech and society issues like misinformation, tackling hate speech, reducing CSAM, the complexity and disruption of generative AI that a lot of people are talking about right now, or recently with the rise of the metaverse. How are we thinking about safety in the metaverse? How are we also thinking about bringing out the best in human nature? Behind the scenes, there's people from all different backgrounds who are coming together to say, these aren't issues. These aren't, easy issues. They aren't something that can be tackled in an individual concept. It really needs collective understanding and action. Our nonprofit, what you're going to hear today when I bring on Sarah Welsh, we have a host of all these different activities, such as a large mentorship program that over 1,000 people have gone through over the last year and a half, and Sarah's going to give a little information about that. We have a Slack community of over 7,000 members now across 85 countries, regular summits and mixers all over the country. We have upcoming ones in New York City, and then we'll be in London on December 5th. We also have regular live streams like this. In addition, open working groups that you can all join. We have working groups on all different topics, recent ones like AI and human rights, tech and democracy, and also HX, all about kind of aligning our tech future with the human experience. And we also have our flagship resource, the Responsible Tech Guide, that you can freely check out, download at responsibletechguide.com, or see everything that we do if you go to alltechishuman.org. In other words, this isn't something where you just tune into a live stream. It's something that we actively want to have you participate, hear your ideas. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my colleague, Sarah, who's going to talk about our mentorship program and then introduce the guest that we have for today's live stream. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm going to remove myself and hand over the stage to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So thanks for that intro, David. I'm Sarah. I run the mentorship program here at All Tech is Human. Just really quickly, the goal of our mentorship program is to build the responsible tech pipeline by facilitating connections and career development among students, career changers, and practitioners. This is an annual program, and the cohort this year will be wrapping up in December. And we'll start a new round in March. I'll talk more about that at the end too, the application process. But this is an annual program. It connects responsible tech practitioners with people interested in trust and safety, ethical AI, tech policy, tech and democracy, and the list goes on and on. You can find more information about that on our website under the programs tab. And so today, I'll be speaking with just four of our 100 or so mentors about their best advice for getting the job in responsible tech. If you missed the session last week, we spoke with 3 different people, about their advice and opinions. So definitely check that out. And I will say it's a very interesting time to be looking for a job in this new space. So we thought it would be really worthwhile to do a couple of these and just talk to people who have some experience navigating it. So today, to talk about careers, we have a responsible AI consultant and researcher, Jiahao Chen, technology strategist in international development in Laura Walker McDonald, a machine learning engineer, Numa Dhamani, and a data scientist and trust and safety specialist, James Gresham. So if we want to bring them up, great. Alrighty. Oh, and a friend. Great. So thank you all so much for being here and for donating your time to this program and for answering these questions. So we have 4 questions for you all that were sent to me by current mentees, and some of them I've kind of finessed a little bit because we had, people ask a lot of questions that were kind of similar in these areas. So this is the product of that. So the first question that we're going to dive into is about early career moves. And, we had a lot of different questions in this area. We have a lot of mentees in our program who are, kind of just getting started, trying to figure out how to get their foot in the door. And so my question to you all, and I'm going to kick this one to Numa first. What was something you did earlier in your career that helped you get to where you are now? And you might follow that up with, just like a general or your most important suggestion for entry level candidates trying to move into this space.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with this one. So very, very early on in my career, I joined Data for Democracy, which was a decentralized community of data science volunteers who wanted to utilize their skill set to help address societal challenges. And there I was involved with a couple of projects. One of them was studying large-scale influence operations that took place on Twitter. Another one was building a code of ethics for data scientists. And it's really how I became really interested in online speech governance and AI ethics. And it ended up really just setting the foundation for everything that I did that I went on to do after that. I've spent the entirety of my career in influence operations and computational propaganda. And now a lot of my work revolves around AI ethics, AI safety, and data privacy. And a lot of the connections that I made like 8 or 10 years ago in that space are still so valuable to me today. So I think my advice for just people early in their careers trying to get into the space would be to join a tech community. It can be local, it can be virtual, it could be something like All Tech is Human, but it's such a great place to network and collaborate and build your skills. And it can really just help drive your professional development.
Great. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I can jump in and just say that I think you're getting that crucial first job is really, it's just luck, and it, as Numa was saying, it just sort of can set a direction for your whole career just by complete chance. So I think there's 2 things that happened to me early on that really helped me out. But again, I think it's more about a sort of mindset of open-mindedness and using your opportunities as they come. And one of them is going to date me pretty heavily, so don't judge. But one of them was that I had worked my way through college my whole career, and I had actually spent like a year saving up to do a master's as a PA. And so the first job I ever got actually in humanitarian aid, where I work now, was with the British Red Cross as a PA in the international team. And I took it. It was a part-time PA job. It was definitely not where I wanted to go, but it was the first job, and it was a wonderful job. And I ended up getting more and more responsibility and staying for 3 years. So that's the first thing, is just take the opportunities when they come, and you never know where it'll go. And then the other thing that happened was that, and this is the part that's going to date me a bit, is that Twitter was just getting started. And so I joined, I have an early join date, which I'm quite proud of. It's not that early, but it's early. And there were only like 300 people in the whole world who were tweeting about humanitarian aid issues at that time. So it was a small community, and some of those people are still connections of mine now. But more importantly, I was using it to learn a bit more about using technology in humanitarian aid, which I was interested in. And through that, I spotted a job that I applied for And when I applied, the guy recognized my name from Twitter. So it really helped me. And, this was a long time ago, clearly, but it really helped me out just in terms of meeting people, getting the lay of the land and getting my name out there. And that was really, really, really helpful. So I think the other thing that I was doing was not just asking for things, but actually putting out useful content that people responded to. So if there's an area that you're interested in, read about it, summarize what you read and put the link up. People really appreciate that kind of editorial, and it will get you noticed.
I can comment too. So
Yes.
Hello. I'm also in New York, so welcome to people listening there. I do some work in auditing employment algorithms, so I have maybe a slightly different view of like what it's like on the back end, from the employer's point of view. I think it's important to realize that the nature of job searches have changed fundamentally in the age of big data and machine learning, because you're really fighting to be noticed by a recruiter. When I was hiring, like, it would be totally normal to get something like 200 to 500 applications for every position that's open. And that's something that I think most career counseling officers are not really advising their students to do well. That's the volume that they're fighting against. And so I think all the points that have been brought up about networking, building a personal brand, building social media presence to make yourself stand out, that's really important. And it's also from like a very practical, like sort of like resume creation point of view. Like, I think the way we structure resumes also has to adapt to the fact that people are using machine learning and applicant tracking systems to manage who's actually being screened for interviews. And that means making your resumes as simple to process as possible by AI. So that's maybe my AI specific comment on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. From my perspective, I like to advise people to keep an open mind specifically around the idea of the first job, because there is so much transferability of skills between different jobs in different areas. My first job out of university was in building credit scorecards for credit cards for a building society, and that was very far away from a lot of the ethical spaces that I ended up going into in the trust and safety space. But there's a huge amount of the basic framework of skills in terms of building metrics and KPIs, structuring and validating data, and even basic model building that I started in that context. So it's good to keep an open mind about building your general skill set, particularly at the early stages of your career. Stay open-minded to jobs which have the kind of skills and the structures that you think you'd potentially be interested in. It's early in your career. It's very there's also going to be all sorts of opportunities for you to go after very specific fields or very specific areas that you care about. But getting your second job tends to be a lot easier than your first one, because at that point you can build up and provide examples of you generating impact, providing value in the workplace. It's generally, once you've got that first foot in the door of the career ladder, it's often really there's often really a lot of opportunities for you to jump to specific places or develop and really guide your career to the place you want it to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and that kind of echoes a little bit what someone was saying in the live stream last week. We were kind of talking about this, and she was saying that, when you're starting out and you're thinking about making a move into this space, think about ways to like broaden your network and reach, rather than just looking at, jobs or networking with people specifically in responsible tech. Like, just, kind of look outward a little more. That could be helpful. Okay, so next question. And I'm going to throw this one to Laura first. So we have a lot of people in our program with non-technical backgrounds who are interested into and moving into responsible tech in, various areas, trust and safety, and so forth. And so the question is, what are some skills, experiences, education, or even certificates? Obviously, this is very broad. I threw out a lot there that might help candidates without a technical background gain a competitive edge.
So I'm kind of really opinionated about this. So I actually have law degrees, which do not qualify me in any way to do whatever my job is. I'm not really sure what my job is. But definitely, like, I'm not coming here with a computer science degree or knowing how to code, and yet somehow I've ended up managing developers and owning products and running companies and then also being a tech advisor, which feels very spurious at times. However, I think the thing you need to have is confidence in your own ability to think critically about what is unfolding in front of you. So I actually don't think that people without a sort of formal traditional technology background need to feel. We need as many disciplines in the building here as possible, because the bit where it gets tricky and the ethical and trust and safety issues come up is where technology interacts with the real world. And the real world is understood by a range of disciplines, including, anthropology, medical backgrounds really help. Actually, legal background is quite helpful because the law covers all sorts of different ethical and relationship issues that come up in technology. So I've always found that actually to be quite helpful, including in breaking down a problem into its parts. And so I actually do a training here for my colleagues. I work in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement now, still, again, come back. And part of the training is if something comes up with technology, they tend to bring it to me and say, what can you deal with this? What is this? And I'll say, well, what do you think? I mean, you've got this background in protection or, public affairs, whatever it is. What do you think this is? Do you think this is a good idea? Like the use of robotics in certain situations, what risks could you see arising? So I think you just need to understand enough about the technology to understand how it interacts with the real world, and then think critically and bring your skills you already have to think about how it's going to play out. And so while I think, we have to have respect and acknowledge like experience and expertise, my point is all sorts of different experiences and expertises are valuable here.
So yeah, the rest of you have pretty technical backgrounds. So I don't know if any of you have anything.
Feel free to disagree. Bring it on.
I can jump in, but I actually could not agree with Laura more, because I think to build responsible technology or to address societal and ethical concerns from technology, it really depends on the socio-technical response, right? So it's a whole of society response, and you need more than just engineers to be able to do that. So for you to be able to understand like ethical implications of technology, that's ethical reasoning. For you need to better like understand social sciences. So things like econ, anthropology, sociology, like policymaking, law, communication, strategy, like design thinking to be able to build like human-centered design solutions. I think all of that is just as valuable as technical skills, if not more. And I say that being, an engineer, I feel like a legal background would have been so helpful to me.
I just want to echo like the importance of a multiple stakeholder and interdisciplinary view. I'm going to echo what people said earlier. There is nothing more frustrating than looking at the work of an engineering team that worked really hard to solve the wrong problem, and oftentimes that happens when they don't fully spec out the problem, or there's some key component that they fail to account for in their technical solution, and that could be something as straightforward as maybe they didn't hear the client correctly on what they wanted. Or it could be something more nuanced, like, well, actually, we're trying to deploy this solution in a regulated industry like finance or healthcare, and you hadn't accounted for the specific testing requirements for things like discrimination or explainability. Things like that do come up. And I think that's why from a personal perspective, like I'm very happy to support All Tech is Human, because I think you guys are doing a really good job at like making sure that broad tent and making sure that different viewpoints, different backgrounds are being incorporated in that discussion. And we need more of that, not less of that. And it's not the case that like just because you're a tech background, like your word is final.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would say that certifications at a very early career stage are a little overvalued because they fall in the same basic category as things like university degrees and similar, in that they're about, I have a qualification because I have learned a course by being taught it. It's probably more useful to spend your time on things like volunteering or maybe something like a GitHub project, something that you can present and show as a tangible piece of work that you've done in some kind of space. There are specific certifications for specific elements, things like learning awareness of specific tools, like a certification for something like AWS, or there's some very good strong certifications for project management. But for most things, you're probably better off early in your career building out proof that you can practically build things in a working environment. The other thing that's worth spending a lot of time on is the ability to communicate clearly and concisely, just because that is going to be the bulk of the interview stage of things. Once you get past the kind of resume screening aspect of things, which is going to be heavily driven by buzzwords and specific keywords and matching of experience and a lot of luck in that space, being able to present yourself well in those spaces, that's more valuable than having a specific certification from Coursera or some kind of tick box element. That's not something that most of your interviewers will be spending huge amounts of time on. Most of your interviewers will be focused on you, not on your CV.
Agree. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Trying to think about, I might want to mix up the order of these. Actually, no, I'll keep it the way it was. No one can see my sheet, so you don't know, but it's the same way as I presented it to you all. So the next question is, if you were hiring for a role at your organization, or you were just hiring in general, how would you like to be contacted by a potential applicant? And Jiahao, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw this one to you first, if you have anything to say here.
Sure. So in my personal capacity, I run a one-person consultancy, and that's me right now. So I am currently not hiring, but the moment business picks up, which I hope it does soon, I'm trying to close a fairly big contract right now. Then please feel free to reach out. I am fairly active on LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is definitely to your advantage to sign up if you haven't already. There are many job applicant tracking systems. The term is ATS. Lots of ATSs allow you to import your resume directly from LinkedIn, and it's actually something I recommend as do it in LinkedIn so that you can have it imported into the employer's system. With fewer mistakes in the transcription. Uploading a PDF or Word document tends to lose data. So I would definitely recommend that. I also say that also don't be shy, and like definitely reach out to people even if they're not actively hiring or posting. Quite a lot of hiring activity happens behind the scenes, and it's not necessarily an open call for applications. That's not true of all employers, but it's also worth considering that, and that's where having a good network is to your advantage, to be able to send out feelers and say, oh, hey, like I'm not hiring, but maybe my team is some other team in my company is hiring, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's really good, and something that, I mean, I think just in your networking that I just want to reinforce. You shouldn't necessarily only reach out to people who are hiring, because, you just never know what's going on. And people can refer you to other things. And I know that's been really useful for me. Does anybody else have anything to add about that one?
Yeah. in a kind of counterpoint to that, there's also an element of don't just reach out through people to ask about jobs and roles, because particularly people you don't know, they may get a lot of those kind of requests where it's somebody just talking for 3 paragraphs to say, can I have a job? Which for a person you don't know, who's maybe got an early stage LinkedIn profile, which doesn't have a huge amount of body of their CV on it, I mean, referrals do happen in that way. People do get onto the hiring ladder in those spaces, but there's a world of difference between someone you know and have had conversations with or have worked with in some way, someone you have a genuine relationship, and a referral that you're making because somebody emailed you and asked you to make a referral. So it's good to network in a more active and substantial way. It is time consuming. So it's definitely something you want to stitch in with other things like joining groups, working on coursework. You want to try and build your networks in those ways. But building authentic networks will always make for much stronger referral prospects than just cold calling effectively.
Yeah, I should add that I wasn't endorsing just reaching out randomly to anybody, but that's a really good point. And like, you know, yeah, if you have some connection with somebody, like you went to the same school or, you know, you had something, that's always good.
Yeah. I was going to say, I completely agree with everything James said. I think affinity groups can be really great. So like, you know, the queer community, for example, it looks out for each other, and there are sort of really great, like Lesbians Who Tech was last week. So there's a really great way to like meet people in a smaller group that then might remember you and can maybe help you out, give you advice. I also wanted to say that, you know, that good networking is time consuming. I think I'm pretty accessible personally. I don't mind getting an email from someone I don't necessarily know. If I don't have time to respond, I may not respond or not respond very well. And I would say just be gentle with people and don't like be a pest if that happens. Just accept that sometimes people are just, you know, crunched or really bad at checking their LinkedIn messages and just maybe didn't spot your message. But I mean, I'm generally pretty happy to be in touch. I think if you can build relationships with people where you have a habit of like, you know, just keeping in touch and doing a coffee every year or something, and just being like, this is what I'm working on now. People remember that stuff. And if you can like interact with the content they put out online and like connect them to people, like, I think don't be intimidated just because someone's like further along in their career than you. I've had loads of help from folks who I've been around longer than they have, but they're, you know, super helpful. And I think just be a member of the community and be a person about it and be thoughtful, and it can work really well.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Numa, anything to add?
I feel like everyone covered such great points that I don't have too much to add. But similar to Laura, I think I'm pretty accessible and I'm happy to usually respond to people. I don't always get to it though, but LinkedIn or email is probably the best way to contact me.
Cool. Okay. So this is, I guess, kind of a similar question, but we had a few questions about networking outside of All Tech is Human. We always have, you know, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of events. Like we have a great community. And I think, as David mentioned, our Slack just hit 7,000 members, which is so many. So there's so many people, you know, to network with in this space. But the question was, you know, yeah, what sorts of, I don't know, groups or events or anything that anyone can mention specifically as good avenues for networking outside of All Tech is Human. And I should say that this person was thinking specifically about the government and nonprofit spaces. So, you know, if anyone has anything to say about that specifically, that would be great. But I'm going to throw it to James first.
Sure. So obviously, All Tech is Human has the Responsible Tech Guide, which is a really good resource and has a huge list of those organizations that are working in that responsible tech space. So that is a very good place to start if you're looking to expand out beyond All Tech is Human itself. the other thing that I'd say is that it's probably better to focus on groups which meet on a recurring basis, in that same kind of vein of the things I've been speaking about in terms of building relationships, rather than just having one-off meetings like you'd have at job fairs and similar. And like actively working in those spaces. So one of my biggest sources of networking has been the Trust and Safety Professional Association. And the way I've done my networking is through volunteering for writing work for their curriculum and so on. And that's allowed me to build much more substantial relationship in those spaces. I will say you don't need to feel limited to responsible tech organizations. You can go for broader conversations about ethics, volunteer groups for issues that you care about, that are potentially valid in those spaces, things like anti-hate speech groups or free speech groups, domestic violence support groups, all of those things you can volunteer from outside of the tech space. And conversely, you can go to places like Kaggle and GitHub and build your tech skills and your tech community in those spaces as well. Those spaces are full of people who discuss ethical tech or connect into those spaces, but it's a good way to expand your remit beyond just the responsible tech space. You can get a much broader reach if you're prepared to focus on the skills and the knowledge that you'll potentially be building up and the networks that you'll be building up, rather than specifically, this is a responsible tech role or a responsible tech organization.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I wanted to say a few things. One is to put a word in for peer mentoring. So when I, back in the late 1800s, when I got my start in this field, it was quite small, particularly among the women identified among us. There just weren't that many people, and people who were 5 or 10 years older than me tended to be a bit weird or very inaccessible, or very few of them, and they're very busy. And so actually it was easier to have groups of people who were in the same spot, or, I still have networks who are not technologists, but are humanitarians from the beginning of my career. And, you move along together. And if you are helping each other workshop problems, encouraging each other to ask for that raise, practicing interviewing, like pointing jobs out to each other, one person's big break can help everybody, shine theory. So I think, especially if you are struggling, don't focus on trying to find a mentor. Find many mentors, and they are all around you, and it's everybody, including all the people who are in the trenches with you. So I wanted to say that. I also wanted to say, look for the community who's interested in what you're interested in, and just to go back to content, and then also to address one of the questions in the comments about, so I don't have a technical background, and how do I get over that hump where all the jobs require a technical background, but I don't have one, and I hear you all saying that's valuable. I was thinking about the role that content plays in the current iteration of the internet that we're all experiencing. A lot of my content I consume is on Substack and podcasts and places like that, like kind of niche, very nerdy content that's very specific, but it's also very, you can really sort of sit there in your car and listen to like global experts on your niche telling you everything they know, and that's amazing. So in that way, you can sort of take your time, spend a year listening to those podcasts or whatever, and reading everybody's Substack and interacting with those content creators, and build a community that way. That's one option. But I would really say, LinkedIn's come up a number of times. That's I think, given what has happened to the platform formerly known as Twitter, that community aspect is not where I found people. It's not really there anymore. I don't even really use it anymore. I think it's not a safe place for many of us anymore. And so you got to find something else. So go look and find where your people are and go there. Don't try and start your own new thing. Go to where the people already are and interact there. So those are a couple thoughts from me.
I love that. And the only thing I would add is to also look at your local tech communities. I live in Austin, and we have the Austin Forum on Technology and Society. We have Austin Women in Tech. And there's such a good place to find the mentors that like Laura's been talking about, to be able to like really do some good networking, because you're able to go do that in person. And they've also done a lot of events on responsible tech and AI ethics. So find the communities that are local to you, because I bet there's so many of them. We've got a few in Austin. And similar to James, I'm also part of TSPA, but I'm also part of Integrity Institute, which is a professional organization and a think tank for integrity professionals, which has also been a really good place for me to network and get involved in like projects outside of work and be able to like volunteer and work through with them. Yeah, I think that's all I have to add there, though.
That's great.
I'll just throw one specific thing out since I've since your question came from someone who was interested in like the policy space. There are many governments around the world that are soliciting public comments on how should I be thinking about AI and copyright, for example. How should I be thinking about regulation of self-driving cars, or there are specific calls like that come out. In the US, the Federal Register is the official publication of record for these kinds of RFIs. Other governments around the world have their own mechanisms for publishing these solicitations for public comment. I encourage people to write in and actually express your comment, because that's where your voice gets heard. Otherwise, if you're concerned about impact, if you want people to listen, like go talk directly to people who literally put out a bulletin to say like, we are asking for public feedback on this. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to address every single thing that they're asking for, but it is a way to be noticed and be heard. I've done this in my professional capacity, and it has led to very weird networking things that I didn't expect. So one was like one of the government agencies actually invited me to a closed door meeting. I actually had a few client leads that were like, oh, I saw you posted something about this, and I'm building a thing, or I have a need in this space, like employment auditing. So it's definitely a place to get noticed that people don't realize. And I certainly did not realize until I started doing this, that this is actually a way to really put your, put your words where it will be heard. Shall we put it that way? Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, these were all such great tips. That was our final question. I just wanted to give anyone the opportunity, if they have any last, important advice to job seekers they wanted to throw out there. We have like a couple minutes, but if not, that's fine too.
Just be persistent. It is a very difficult job market right now, and I have advised, especially PhD students, people in like the machine learning community, like they'll be like, oh, I applied to Facebook and Google and I got turned down, woe is me. And I'm like, well, did you think about other places? Like, have you thought about other companies that are hiring for machine learning that are not in like the very narrow space of big tech? Are we thinking of startups? Are we casting your net broad enough? And are you trying hard enough? Because oftentimes, like, there will be those superstars that will get like 5 job offers, and then you will compare yourselves to those people, and you feel like, oh, woe is me, I'm not that person. But if you're not a superstar who doesn't have the privilege of being so well connected and so visible, don't be surprised if it takes 20 applications, 50 applications, or like 50 cold resume updates, and also like back channeling, saying like, hey, can you please find someone at Meta who will like kind of give me a signal boost by an internal referral. All of that work is really important to get ahead in this job market.
Yeah. And on a kind of related note, don't get absolutely wedded to the idea of a specific role or at a specific place. Think about roles in terms of what value they're providing to you, how they're developing you, and how they're going to they're going to build your career, not in terms of I want to work at a specific place doing a specific thing and try and go straight to there immediately and just focus entirely on that.
Mm-hmm.
I also just wanted to say again the solidarity that I feel with Jeffrey and Zoe in the chat, who are saying, if you don't look like what you think people are looking for, it's really hard to do the conventional job application. That is so true. and it is hard. And I hear Zoe when she's saying, well, look, if you're talking about like a fourth job here that I have to do to build my personal brand and write content and engage with people and go on a coffee a week, you know, like all that stuff. I don't really, I've been trying to think what my advice would be, but I think exactly what you were saying. I think my first job took me 84 applications or something to get it. And then after that, it gets easier. And I think, you know, building content is the best way that you can get your person, you know, get to be known and go to conferences and things like that, and try and leverage your current job to get your current expertise to get into your next one. So I had a colleague from many years ago who was an accountant actually, and she used to work for British Airways, and she used that to get the lead accountant job for the British Red Cross's international work, and now she's been with the movement ever since. That's a long time now. So sometimes these lateral moves, they just take a long time, and you have to be very patient and opportunistic. And just to say that I have all the solidarity in the world in my heart for all of us.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's just networking goes such a long way. So find your community, reach out to people. Don't be intimidated to reach out to people. You probably have just enough to teach them as they can teach you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thank you all so much. This was an awesome discussion. I learned a lot, so appreciate it. So I just wanted to plug really quickly, the next round of our mentorship program will be starting March 1st, 2024. But applications for mentors are going to open November 1st, which I learned is next week. So we're already in November. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. And then applications for mentees will be open in January. And again, you can find a wait list for both mentors and mentees on our website under the programs tab. And then I just wanted to make a quick plug for Techalo. If you're interested in careers in social impact, especially if you're looking for technical roles, which is mostly what we're recruiting for right now, check out techalo.org. So thank you all so much for joining us and sharing your time with us today. And good luck to all the job seekers out there. Just keep at it. You got this. Thank you.
Thanks all.